It feels great to be here to do this speech today because I've always wanted to speak to the people, but time has never been right. I haven't felt up to it or just too shy. But now, at the age of 67, I feel like it's time now that I need to lose those silly childish feelings and stand here and talk to you about what I've learned over the last 30 years. So thank you for your patience and whilst we were setting up. But firstly, I want to say that this speech wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Alan, my dear partner, who only an hour ago, or an hour and a half ago now, completed this script and the photo slots for me that I'd moved around over the last 2 days and buggered the whole thing up. So, not only that, this is Alan's first time, it's our first time doing a PowerPoint presentation, so hope you enjoy it. Kia ora, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malcolm Harker, traditional medical herbalist and passionate manufacturer of over 80 handmade original herbal remedies and personal healthcare products sold through the New Zealand health market since 1981. Firstly, I want to say how honoured and humbled I am that you've come along to hear me speak. This is the first time in over 25 years that I've felt that I'm ready to tell my story. And it's a fascinating story that many people would give their right arm to experience. And for that, I'm truly grateful to the Creator for choosing me to do His will. Traditional herbal medicine has taught me that life is indeed a fickle thing that needs looking after, and preferably without the help from the chemical drug and snip-out brigade. Along the way, I learnt that traditional herbal philosophies light up the importance of diet for nutrition of the body, that without the one, there can't be the other. Because in health matters, plant foods and good health are inseparable. Because most vegetables we eat today started off their long association with humans as medicinal herbs. There's garlic, lettuce, parsley, carrots, are ordinary examples. My story is about a rather late start in life, back to that wonderful thing called wellness, beginning around about the age of 40-ish, and what I've learned and embraced along the way that I found good for me and for those who seek me for assistance with their health concerns. To relate this story properly, I've got to go back into prehistory, to the dawn of man's first days on earth, when hunger led them to attractive flowering and delicious smelling fruits on trees, and to the grasslands and herbaceous fields in search of sweet drupes, berries and nuts to eat. He would have captured a few slow rodents, sleepy lizards, a fish or two, and perhaps a couple of nectar-inebriated birds along the way, as well as their eggs, all of which would have provided superb balanced nutrition, good health and natural strength. The history of the use of plants as remedies probably goes back to that time when primitive man, living so close to nature, would have observed the habits of the animals around him and learnt about their curative properties of herbs that they used for food and when they are injured. There are snakes in India, after shedding their skin, they go blind for several hours as the morphine process proceeds, and in that helpless state, they've been seen to slither over to mossy banks and rub their sightless oars into the moist moss, tearing at it to bring out the juice. And with that simple herb, they are said to quickly restore their sight. In Canada, there are hawks known to peck at the eyes of young birds in the nest. The mother birds have been seen to rub the chicks' damaged eyes with celandine herb. And it's said that where the eyes aren't totally destroyed, the lacerations caused by the pecking have been healed and sight restored. Another good example of animal know-how in choosing their remedies occurs when the mongoose, the cobra snake's only mortal enemy, when bitten by the snake in battle, goes straight over to a plantain herb, crushes it, rolls in the juice, and pushes his bitten backside into the crushed leaves. Then he returns to give the snake one hell of a hiding. According to many witnesses, this display of animal self-healing, no mongoose has ever died of a snake bite. And you can use that herb for bee stings, whitetail spider bites, wasp stings, toothache, anything like that. It'll take the pain away in 10 to 20 minutes and draw out the poison as well. Hundreds of examples of animals' instinctive selection of remedies make it seem logical that humans would have learnt over time which herbs and other natural things would heal them from our own problems. Such instances are the roots of traditional herbal healing. For myself, my roots are in a dairy farm upbringing on a beautiful 60-acre farm bordering the Waipapa River up in Kerikeri, a lush green sanctuary with waterfalls, ferny dells, deep and dark eel-infested swimming holes, and goats, cows, horses, chooks, and Mickey the border collie. At the age of 24, I left for an overseas experience and spent a wonderful 10 years adventure in outback Australia through the 1970s as the beginning of my OE. But I seem to have got stuck in Aussie because it was such an amazing place with so much to see and do. It was a heaven for a young adventurous lad of 24. I don't know whether it was the Aussie meat pies or the flies that eventually dragged me back away from my dear friends, back home to mum and dad and cool green grass. It was probably a bit of both, plus the fact that I had become a very sick man after crawling out of the raging 70s, having had a great time burning the candle at both ends, raging, partying up big time, and then fed up with that, living a rustic life up in the Blue Mountains and the back blocks with hillbillies who took me and my mate into their homes, and they taught us things about life and the nature around them. Back home in New Zealand around the early 80s, I worked as chief salad maker and taster for Simple Cottage restaurant in Auckland, surrounded in good food, and became healthier whilst turning my attention to the study and practice of what I saw was a modern tragedy: the dying customs and values of traditional herbal medicine and the related dietary and living ethos that goes with it. I wanted to study traditional herbal medicine because the old ways and those bearded, wise old physicians appealed to me. So I surfed all the Auckland bookshops, buying up all the old herbal books, looking for herbal knowledge written by wise physicians and philosophers such as Gerard, Hippocrates, Dioscorides, Sydenham, Culpeper, and many others who laid the foundations of traditional healing that are very much applicable and appropriate today. I had good reason to want to know how to heal my body. Early years on the family farm provided a good life for a growing boy. Plenty of homegrown veggies, raw cow's milk, pure rainwater, fresh country air. But at the age of 13, whilst working in a neighbouring piggery, I got bitten by a piglet we were castrating with a razor blade, and that was instant justice, I reckon. And came down with leptospirosis, which led to weeks in intensive care as my body sweated and fatigued. I bounced back okay, only to squash my finger a few days later between a rock and a harder place, which left the end digit flat and needing stitches. Then I was back to the doctors having the digit sliced off because it had died and decomposed. On top of this, there followed a severe bout of yellow jaundice for another 3 weeks, and the inoculations and drugs that went with that, all of which was far too much for me at that young age. For many years after that, I was constantly fatigued, with inflamed liver, swollen kidneys, continual colds and flu, always off work. I was rake thin, pallid, suffered the mother of all dreadful acidity and heartburn after every meal, regurgitating up volumes of acidic mucus from my stomach, plus constipation and 2 very active anal fissures that hassled me as well. Until the age of 38, when I realised that if I wanted to live a happier life, I'd better start doing something about it now. I didn't use herbs at all to heal myself in the early days. This was accomplished mainly through raw vegetables and fruits, and maybe the right attitude, because I really wanted to get well. I wanted to heal myself naturally, just like the old sages said could be done if their ways are followed. I was fed up with all the feeling ill and being used as a guinea pig by the medical profession. Try this new pill, that new tablet, after a while each one seeming like a blind experiment upon what vitality I had left. Incredibly, not one of those stethoscope-draped doctors or white-coated gastroenterologists bothered to talk to me about my diet, as though that had nothing to do with it, with the ongoing digestive disorders and other symptoms that plagued me. They seemed to be more interested in getting their latest fruit-coloured pills into me. As the last specialist explained, we need to find out the fate of this new pill after you have swallowed it. I felt that what he needed was a wart on the end of his nose and a mirror on the wall. The fate of the pill, for me that was it. They could go and con some other muggins to test their fancy new drugs on. I was more concerned about the fate of me, not their new cherry-coloured pill's fate. I'd had enough of all this medical tomfoolery, the years of useless scans, the probes, the barium meals, and the constipating drugs. Experts and specialists were working in the dark and in fact could not help me, which was a worry because I was going backwards and not forwards in my health status. I became so sick that in desperation I eventually visited the nearest health shop and asked the lady behind the counter about getting well. She gave me some drops of something, a little talk, and sent me on my way with a paperback booklet pressed firmly into my hand. That little book, Professor Arnold Ehret's 1920s cult classic, The Mucusless Diet Healing System, taught me how to heal myself via my foods. Ehret was a man who in the 1920s cured himself from near-terminal nephritis via a mucusless diet and subsequently went on to open several health spas across Australia and Switzerland, healing people in the same way. I bravely booked myself on his 40-day grape juice fast and got through an amazing, for me, 28 days of it, after which I forced myself to live on raw veggies, fruits and their juices, loads of sprouts and fresh berries. During this time, my skin freshened, and for the first time in my life, I saw that my eyes were blue, not battleship grey. Old digestive problems came right, less distension and constipation. I was morphing back into my real self, and it felt good. Until that morning, after I'd been several months into this new juices and foods regime, when I awoke alarmed to find that I was leaking pus and got a hell of a fright. This wasn't just your everyday NSU kind of drip, like I'd had as a teenager. This was a full-on thing. The initial fright mulled into a sense of accomplishment as the truth of exactly what was happening to me came to me. This was the disease actually leaving my body, just like Ehret said would happen. The grape juice fasts, the raw vegetable juices, the raw greens and sprouts, the mineral spring water, the disease was being driven out of my body because of these ordinary things that I was taking every day. Every week I could see the changes in skin and eye colour, energy levels were better, painful kidney and liver swellings were going down, and best of all, two long-standing active and very annoying anal fissures began drying up and healing. I was thrilled, so full of the joy of it, I wanted to rush outside and tell everyone in the street what I'd just experienced. All of my own doing. Hey, guess what? Disease is leaking out of my body because of all the fruits and veggies I've been eating. Isn't this wonderful? I didn't run out into the street. The great thing was how self-empowered and free I felt for the first time in years, in control of my own body, and at last I knew that this was how I was going to regain and maintain lost good health and heal others from now on. This was starting to get exciting because I felt that anyone could do this if they wanted to and would mean so much independence from what many now see as a struggling and confused orthodox system that has great difficulty in healing because their philosophies and methods aren't aligned to that which supports life, the living cell, in sickness and health, but instead embraces anti-life methods that rely on chemical, radiation, X-ray and snip-out procedures, no doubt applied in good faith, but which seems only to prolong pain and misery. Along my journey, I soon realised that gluten, dairy products, sugar, excessive cooked food and oily foods in my diet were my worst enemies. If I ate them, they would eat me. They were my Achilles heel. I decided for the rest of my life I would try and avoid these things, and here I am at 67, feeling very well. I had my lungs tested 2 years ago by the local doctor for insurance purposes. She said, "You don't smoke, do you?" I said, "Well, I smoked like a chimney from the age of 18 to 49, packet and a half a day. But I had to quit because I was getting emphysema in the right lung, and I nearly drowned Christmas Eve '93 trying to get back to shore from the platform in the middle of the Kaiwi Lakes, unable to get enough air into my right lung. I had to dog paddle back to shore. Since then," I said, I told her I'd cleansed my lungs from thick tarry mucus, using my herbal preparations to loosen the crap in my lungs, and hanging upside down whilst partner Alan pummeled my back with clenched fists, loosening the thicker, deeper stuff. I won't go into the cup and a half of thick, clingy brown gunk that we got out. Well, whatever you've done, she said, you've got the lungs of a 25-year-old. The same doctor recently tested my blood pressure. Oh, she said, again quite surprised, do you know that you've got the blood pressure of a teenager? I was secretly over the moon, learning that all the efforts to right all the wrongs had paid off over the years, and thanking the thorny hawthorn tree and unprocessed Celtic sea salt for keeping my heart and arteries supple and in good tone over so many years. I tried to tell the lovely doctor about the benefits of hawthorn berries and unprocessed Celtic sea salt for heart concerns, and received a patronising pat on the back for the trouble. Because of my own self-healing experiences using mainly foods to achieve wellness, everyone now who seeks my assistance with health concerns are given advice on a healing diet first to use along with medicinal herbs I may prescribe, because no amount of herbal assistance will ever help those who don't help themselves at the same time with a health-promoting diet. One of the earliest experiences that showed me the power of herbs came a year or so after I'd opened my first healing clinic in Avondale, Auckland, when a gentleman phoned to ask if I'd treat sore eyes. This was around 1986. Yeah, pop around and we'll see what we can do. Around comes Dave the next morning, a rather depressed-looking man, definitely fed up with something. As I stood closer, trying to see into his eyes, he began peeling his clothes off. Now, what's the problem with your eyes? I inquired, a little concerned about the stripping off business going on in front of me. Eyes, he quizzed. What eyes problem? You said you've got sore eyes over the phone, I replied, standing back a little. Not sore eyes, he laughed, now stripped down to bare torso. Psoriasis, he said, as he showed me his skin that was shedding flakes onto the carpet like dandruff. I hadn't seen anything like this before, and it gave me quite a start, which showed, I'm sure. Nothing, he said, that I've tried over the last 15 years has helped me, Malcolm. Not even soaking in the Dead Sea. I photographed the worst areas, and after listening to his story, promised that I'd look further into this and hopefully come up with something to help him. Within a fortnight, I was back on the phone, telling him to come around and collect his remedy. 10 litres of the muddiest looking concoction imaginable. I was almost afraid to give it to him, but I was confident enough, even though I had never treated this disease before and was still an amateur and had a lot to learn. The herb used has always been used for these kind of problems by gypsies over the ages, so why then, I thought, would it not work equally well now for this man's skin affliction? So away he went. The weeks went by, I got busy, and all but forgot about him. A few months passed with no contact, and I began to worry. I hadn't heard from Dave for so long, I was starting to think that my rustic brew hadn't helped him at all. That all the study had let me down. I was miffed at Mrs. Florrie Nature big time and went out and kicked a tree, which was done because I was barefooted. 5 months passed, and Dave's sore eyes was now just a distant, fleeting memory confined to the nothing box. Ah well, I thought to myself, at least I've learnt one thing, not to put so much darn trust in herbs. Rats. I wanted to put heaps of darn trust in herbs, all herbs. I didn't want to doubt their efficacy at all. Yet frustratingly, this is where I feared my naivety was leading me, and my belief that some insignificant little herb and her seeds could heal a man from an incurable disease he'd had for over a decade and a half. About halfway into the 6th month, after this disappointing episode, there was a brisk knock at the door, and there, to my great surprise, stood Dave Sore Eyes, smiling broadly. A younger-looking, happier Dave, arriving totally unannounced to surprise me. I couldn't believe this was the same sad man I'd last saw nearly 7 months ago, slimmer, healthier looking, radiant skin and clear eyes with a sparkle that wasn't there before. My skin's been clear like this for several weeks now, Mel. I stuck to the list of things you gave me to eat and avoid, took the medicine every day, and here I am, He was elated and so was I. So once again I refrained from running out into the street yelling, "Yippee!" The feeling of joy for both him and me was euphoric and further encouraged and empowered my convictions. I had a letter from Dave about 10 years later, and he was very pleased to tell me that his psoriasis had never returned after the herbal treatment, and he was still free of the curse of it. So what was the main herb used to effect such an astonishing permanent remission? Not going to tell you. Burdock seed and burdock root and her seed as a concentrated syrup. 2 parts of that one plant did all that healing. Another severe case involved a young gentleman with chronic recurrent psoriasis that he too was told by the medical profession was incurable, and he would just have to learn to live with it. Yet, with a change of diet from daily meat pies and chips to raw veggies and juices, plus herbal tonics, a complete healing was obtained for him within a mere 3 to 4 months. A relatively short time compared to the 11 years he'd put up with the problem in spite of a great array of other therapies, including drugs, that he had tried over the years. Psoriasis is a very stubborn disorder, and even today, after dealing with the disease for so long, I can't tell you what is the cause of psoriasis. All I can think of is that perhaps Samuel Hahnemann had it right, that it's a genetic disposition, possibly triggered by certain dietary and environmental factors, which my observations tends to support. However, happily, I can say what I have seen put the disease into remission. Another chronic case I want to show you is this young man's 8-year-old discoid psoriasis problem. He was at his wit's end with this thing and told me he had thought of suicide on more than one occasion, having lost girlfriends over the years because of it. He cleared up in 4 months on a gluten-free diet, raw foods menu and herbal tonics, though unfortunately I have lost contact with him since then to know if he remains today free of the psoriasis. All that these people had to do was accept responsibility for their own health, and healing automatically proceeded, because a combination of mind over matter, cellular nutrition and herbal influences make it happen. Nature Cure works quietly away in the background, wouldn't give him the chance to heal. My protege Alan Ryan suffered repetitive conjunctivitis in his right eye for many years before he came to assist me in 1994, and he allowed me to paste a comfrey root gel and cayenne poultice directly into his open eye, which he accepted like the warrior he is, although I thought I was going to have one hell of a fight on my hands to get him to accept this. But no, slap it in, he implored, tired of the ongoing swelling, the pain, inflammation and pus behind the eyeball. So in went the rustic moist poultice, plenty of it, right on top of the actual eyeball. He said it felt tingling and drawing, so I knew that the comfrey root gel was beginning to pull out the pus from the inner eye tissues, and within 2 days, 3/4 teaspoon of greenish grey pus matter was extracted from behind the eye socket. And as the painful swelling subsided, he was forever a convert to the power of herbs. He hasn't had a relapse since. We've seen the tumours dry up, the long-standing leg ulcers shrink and heal, the stubborn eczema and psoriasis blemishes fade away, the heartbeat and the high blood pressure come down and normalise, asthmatics reduce the need for inhalers, and recently the AIDS virus load come down to near zero from a count of 9,000. One of the secrets is in building up the vast army of macrophages and other soldier cells within the bloodstream. Unprocessed coconut butter will destroy the AIDS virus and probably most other viral diseases. In 2009, I had contact from a very sick AIDS sufferer who was given just 6 weeks to live. He had never taken upon his own decision the prescribed drugs and was inquiring to see if I could help him, as he had been suffering from AIDS and hepatitis C for 4 years and didn't know what to do next, and he had little energy left. September the 16th, 2009, I sent a parcel of specific tonics to Josh, after which I didn't hear from him for over a year, until out of the blue he contacted me on April the 1st, 2011, saying he felt better whilst on the tonics, but he had not been able to contact me to order more tonic and Celtic sea salt for months. He said that he just got out of hospital and felt really unwell, and that he had no T cells left, that his viral load was really high, and the doctor said that unless you start taking the drugs, you've got 3 months, mate. He said he felt that I was his last hope. April the 7th, 2011, I sent Josh a large packet of clinical herbals, and on 20th of April, I sent him an email advising him to start taking unprocessed coconut butter, because I had information from ex-Hollywood film star Elaine Hollingsworth, now president of the Australian Hippocrates Centre in Brisbane, that unprocessed coconut milk or butter or the oil or the meat contains the principal lauric acid, which dissolves the outer coating of the AIDS virus, destroying them. I told him about an AIDS victim Elaine said was so fatigued and fed up with all the AIDS drugs and the rigmarole that he took off to a Pacific island, taking nothing with him but his toothbrush and clothes. He happened to drink a lot of coconut milk and ate a lot of fresh coconut meat while he was there, and found to his surprise that he was gaining strength. Within 2 weeks, he was running through the jungle. Back home, he continued to consume at least 1/2 of a fresh coconut per day and half of the milk. Laboratory tests showed that the viral load had dropped from 900,000 to just 300,000, and within another month on fresh coconut, the viral load was non-existent, and he had gained a much-needed 32 pounds. On April the 20th, 2011, Josh wrote back thanking me for the remedies and said he was okay, still very tired, but pushing through. August the 25th, he apologises for lack of contact. He said he's been in hospital with pneumonia and had just got home. But the great news, he said, was that with the meds I sent him, his CD4 white blood cell count went up from 0 to 40, and his viral count went down 99%. He was still not taking the AIDS drugs, and as he said, with results like this on your meds, man, not ever going to. His own words. December the 20th, Josh tells me that he is still low in T cells, is still taking the remedies, and has so much energy, thanks, he says, to being on the tonics for months and never missing a dose. So according to his emails, it's evident to me that he has a good chance on getting on top of this viral disease. As in any profession, the chances of success in this field of work is greatly increased, and failure becomes less of an option when we try and understand the pros and cons of the materials we're working with. I had to get my head around the chemistry of herbs and disease fast in the early days, because I knew there was no way I was ever going to succeed in what I wanted to do, and that was heal the sick, take away pain, fight the ravages of cancer and arthritis, if I didn't have much idea of what I was actually working with. And this was a daunting prospect for one who preferred to play guitars with mates in the school playground than sit through science classes. A study over a 5-year period of advanced herbology took me into a world of molecules and atoms in a way that helped me appreciate the disease process and how botanical healing nutrients can cure them, which has proven to be a bonus in assisting me choose herbal ingredients for remedies. The revelation for me that herbs and greens are the perfect food and medicine for humans, I saw in the almost identical construction of the human blood molecule and the plant sap molecule composition on the left. The atomic elements that make up the red matter of blood, hemoglobin, are 99% identical to the elements that make up the green chlorophyll sap in plants. We've almost got identical blood, plants and animals. The only difference between the two is the central nucleus. The hemoglobin molecule has at its centre the red element iron, whilst the chlorophyll molecule has the green element magnesium at its centre. The other 4 elements that make up plant and blood molecules, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen and nitrogen, are identically placed in the atomic solar system formation of both molecules. This phenomenon struck me as being nature's cunning way of assuring that herbaceous animals, including us, eating raw vegetation, can't help but get all the basic minerals and elementals of which our blood is composed. As the great sage said over 2,000 years ago, let foods be your medicine, and medicine be your foods. If we avoid fresh greens, berries and fruits, or don't get enough of them, and instead crave for salt-saturated fried takeaways and excess cooked and processed foods, we alter this natural atomic plan, causing the blood to malnourish, to thicken and lose oxygen. And we know what happens to fire when deprived of oxygen. It makes you wonder why there's so much disease on Earth when we have so much of this green stuff around. Perhaps the answer can be found just after the last ice age. That's why I've got to go back so far. About 10,000 years ago, when man's diet changed dramatically from the hunter-gatherer style of pre-ice age human. Fed up with having to run around looking for food every morning, they decided that a new way of life was needed that was more convenient. A time known as the dawn of civilization, when walled villages were built, where animals were raised for meat, and fields sown with cereal crops, providing an abundance of grain and meat, previously unavailable in such quantity to pre-Ice Age man. This convenience led to a greater consumption of earthy acid-forming grain and flesh foods, which rapidly changed the original human pro-alkaline pH chemistry of earliest vegetal human blood to a pro-acidic pH blood chemistry that post-Ice Age modern man had promoted with his new acid-forming diet, the consequences of which now can be seen in society today, where we are more vulnerable to potentially harmful organisms. We had shifted from an instinctive raw greens, fruits, raw blood and soft animal organ diet to a less natural but preferred mainly cooked meat and grains diet, which became our gastronomical downfall. For the first time in over tens of thousands of years, the human diet had altered dramatically, and so did the naturally robust human constitution. The rest is medical history. Common degenerate disorders were probably unknown to Neolithic people, yet most people today will end up suffering one or more such diseases because most civilized people don't have the instincts to look after themselves nutritionally. There's an old gypsy saying that if you have not yet learnt how to look after yourself by the age of 40, then you deserve the doctors. The how-to is already out there, because unfortunately yesteryear's home remedies were passed down through generations and copied into ledgers called receipt books, which the invention of printing presses made widely affordable, and many became bestsellers. In fact, 16th century British herbalist Nicholas Colpe's best-known book, The English Physician, had 5 reprints before 1698, even though he was chastised and hounded by the bureaucracy of the time, and earned the wrath of the London College of Physicians by publishing his layman's books of herbal and medical knowledge for ordinary people, effectively intruding in the doctor's privileged and lucrative domain. His mutual contempt for the College of Physicians was apparent when he wrote, "Bees are industrious and go abroad to gather honey from every plant and flower, but the drones lie at home and eat up what the bees have taken great pains for. Just so do the College of Physicians lie at home and domineer and suck out the sweetness of other men's honour and studies, themselves as ignorant in the knowledge of herbs and healing as a child of 4 years old." Such condemnation of the mineral drug profession so many hundreds of years ago. And what's changed today? Nothing much. Often we read in newspapers about medical teams receiving recognition for discovering a miraculous new plant substance to treat such and such a problem, when traditional herbalists have used those same plants for curing similar problems over centuries. It's so easy for the pompous to steal native knowledge and claim it as their own important discovery, a miracle breakthrough. Today, bureaucrats thwart the work of herbalists through over-regulation and banning highly medicinal herbs, which is seriously unjust in a world where the very best of herbs are now so urgently needed. The famous healing herb Lobelia inflata is an example of a great medicinal herb unfairly banned because of a perception that the herb is harmful, when in fact it should be called the Lazarus herb because of its ability to revive victims of serious and terminal poisoning and lift them from their deathbed. Not long ago, I had to use a strong brew of lobelia to save a man poisoned with ricin, one of the deadliest toxins known. He was being sprayed in the face with it. Though close to comatose, blue and stiffening, we managed to get 1 litre of strong infusion of lobelia down him, and within 20 minutes he brought up half a bucket of vile orange-coloured liquid. Then after another litre he brought up another lot, promptly collapsed and slept for 6 hours straight. The next morning he was, in his own words, a box of birds, and indeed looked very refreshed and even glowing. Herbalists today are banned from using this miraculous Lazarus herb. Why? The shame of busybody bureaucrats in such positions of power, making things so damn difficult for everyone else and not listening to reason. It is frustrating and impeding for we who are trying to help people. I feel like they've cut our right arm off by banning this great medicinal herb. Isn't it beautiful? And that they are trying to prevent herbalists from healing as well as before when we were free to use it. Now's the time when everyone we know is burdened with rampant arthritis, diabetes, heart disease, cancers and obesity to learn the value of medicinal herbs and raw foods in health and healing, so we may become stronger to be more able to look after ourselves, drug and surgery free. Traditional herbal remedies used freely would help keep hospital queues shorter, with parents and schools teaching people about wild herbs and good nutrition, so there is less illness and suffering in their future. This day will come. When asked what should be done when ill, my reply is always the same. Go green, go back to nature, fast, drinking pure water and rest. Then when feeling a little better, have raw and steamed greens and their juices before eating more solid foods. We then imitate a diet similar to the raw foods diet that our earliest ancestors would have eaten. They had little choice but to eat from the garden of nature around and about them, because the corner dairy hadn't been invented yet, and in fact neither had corners. So, eating raw foods worked really well for me, so well that I dedicated the rest of my life to helping people in this way via a 70% raw foods and 30% protein-rich cooked foods diet. I encourage my patients to make fresh carrot juice daily, to do short grape juice fasts to purify the bloodstream, and eat fresh raw greens and sprouts to build up their immunity. I let them know that their body may eliminate flaky mucus from the bowel, albumin and pus from the kidneys and bladder, thick tar from the lungs, if a smoker in the past, and sour sweat from skin pores, and that they may have to put up with diarrhea and accept it as part of the internal cleansing process. However, the upside of it all, I assure them, is that they will come out feeling good, to be on the road to wellness. Thanks to the power of green chlorophyll, many are able to achieve this and more. Some people need to go through the living hell of perjury to earn the rewards of wellness. Being able to observe firsthand the results of my herbal therapies and learn about the chemistry of diseases presented to me and the herbal ingredients that would combine best to annul those ailments made it possible to match the organic chemistry of disease with the organic chemistry of herbs. Orthodox medicine gives inorganic sulfur in the form of flowers of sulfur to people suffering pus eliminating skin diseases. But in this form, it circulates through the bloodstream and most of it is thrown out of the body through the skin pores, showing that it has not been assimilated by the body cells, but rejected. And meanwhile, this raw mineral sulfur, having a strong affinity for iron, steals it from the foods we eat and from the blood, forming the powerful astringent styptic sulfide of iron, which severely constipates the body's systems by drying up the liquids in the arteries, the stomach, the digestive tract, colon and bowel, and causes anemia. On the other hand, organic sulfur, as found in mustard seed, garlic, onions, asafoetida, watercress, marigold flowers, and many other herbs and vegetables, restores organic sulfur to the cells and organs that has been lost to the body in pus-eliminating diseases, bringing about restoration of the skin and functions of all organs suffering. Where bones are arthritic, brittle, and tendons are hardened and weak, we mustn't give calcium, we must give silica-rich herbs, including willow, horsetail, nettles, and oat straw, rather than herbs that are rich in calcium, because giving raw calcium in any form, organic or inorganic, leads to even worsened arthritic problems, stiffer joints, brittle and easily broken bones. Because calcium is lime, the same stuff that concrete is made from. On the other hand, organic silica, as found in snappy, often white raw vegetables and fruits, in the presence of omnipresent carbon, transmutes within the body to body-friendly calcium, making the hair, skin, all the bones, gristle and connective tissue structures, including cell membranes, strong, resilient and with silica pliable. This is why crispy raw vegetables such as cabbage rib, onions, radishes, celery and apples are so good for us, as well as our herbs, because they are silica rich and are the perfect conveyors of this organic mineral into the body. Organic iodine is another mineral so readily available in nature. We can get organic iodine from many plants, including all edible seaweeds, ash leaves, radishes, green immature walnuts and walnut leaves. Every year we gather green walnuts and soak them in edible grain alcohol to make a year's supply of iodine-rich green walnut tincture for the thyroid gland and its vermicidal properties. The body is an alchemist. One mineral turning into another mineral is unheard of, yet is a natural occurrence called biological transmutation of matter that goes on within our bodies every second of the day. A classic example of this phenomena was observed in Lyme-Poor country by Professor Kervran, when neighbouring hens were seen picking up shiny grains of silica-rich mica flakes that were glistening on the ground after the rain. Though the hens were living on calcium-poor land and were never fed calcium-fortified supplemental feed, they continued to produce hard eggshells that were consistently thick, white and strong. So where was the lime coming from that made these calcium-rich eggshells so robust? The young Kervran wondered. The gizzards of these chickens were opened and examined, and there was no sign of any mica or crop stones. So why were the hens interested in them, and where did the mica flakes go? There could only be one answer, Kervran concluded, that the silica molecules were dissolving out from the mica flakes and transmuting into calcium, from which the hen's chemical factory made perfectly sound calcium-rich eggshells. The phenomenon of one mineral transmuting into a completely different mineral occurs every second of the day as our body, the original Wizard of Oz, through its many atomic pathways, changes things around when in need. It is organic silica that makes strong, resilient, pliable bones, not calcium, as the medical profession keeps pushing on us. Calcium, which, like calcinated lime that concrete is made of, performs in the body like cement, hardening and making brittle. This is one of Kervran's simple graphs that shows how silica turns into calcium in the presence of universally present carbon, naturally. The human race should re-embrace herbal medicine and choose not to remain ignorant of a free medicine that's their rightful inheritance. Economically, healing with herbs is a lot cheaper than paying high prices for chemical medicines that often prove to be non-beneficial and known to lodge within organs, causing unforeseen problems and resist removal, which the herbalist then finds 7-fold times more difficult to remove than the disease itself. One last case I wish to tell you about concerns a 76-year-old lady who wrote to me in September 2011 suffering from 36 years of skin problems. At 40 years old, she had breast cancer and had the right breast removed and also the lymph glands. She was continually having basal and squamous lesions burnt off, and after the many years, many of them returned as malignant lesions and were cut off after several blasts of nitrogen didn't remove them. 3 large tumours were recently cut out of her left foot, and in September last year she was to have surgical removal of a return tumour and a skin graft. Meanwhile, I got her on to taking 60 grams of unprocessed virgin coconut butter daily, and the visiting surgical doctor who removed squamous and other cancers at the hospital, after looking at her foot, said that she doesn't really need to have the operation anymore. On the 4th of November 2011, patient says she is feeling great and was continuing to take the coconut butter daily and soak her foot with a sea salt wash followed by a fresh urine soaking and thence application of the lesion poultice. On December the 28th, 2011, Maureen said that a booking had now been made for removal of the malignant ulcer and to do the skin graft. Feeling that the surgery was no longer needed, she visited her doctor, who couldn't believe how good the foot now was, that the malignant lesions were now gone, and how well the lesion gel was drawing out the tumours as they popped up. The doctor checked her groin and armpits for swellings and told her that everything was fine, and she definitely did not have to have anything cut out, that she could certainly go ahead and cancel her appointments at the hospital and go to the beach. Unprocessed cold-pressed virgin coconut butter is the medicine of the day for diabetes, AIDS, cancer and almost every other common degenerate disease, including Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. I believe the reason why herbs heal is because they are organic and therefore can become a part of the organic living human and animal organism that we are, and because they and they alone are the source of all life on earth. It's not possible for grains of sand, scrapings of gold from a coin, rust from an iron nail, particles of soil from the garden, or any other substance that is crude and not from the organic kingdom to enter into our cells and manifest as life and growth. This reality helps us understand why organic living vegetables and herbs deal so well to disease as they do, because their life-enhancing and healing virtues are felt and visible in a short time. The herbs and other ingredients in my remedies are not only chosen for their known healing properties, but most importantly for their organic chemistry, though I must admit it is a bit of a mission getting around some of the heavier chemistry of some of these herbs, like for example tragacanth gum, which contains no less than a ridiculous 87 letters to describe its organic chemistry. And even today no scientist can fully analyse the chemical composition because it's so complex and unintelligible even for the best brains to make sense of it. However, with a little effort, enough can be sufficiently understood about the basic chemistry and properties of most popular medicinal herbs to make the difference between understanding what you're doing and not, and hopefully earning recognition for intelligence. Maybe it's okay for bureaucrats to clown around and earn worldwide ridicule, like preventing water sellers in Europe last year from claiming that water stops thirst because a panel of medical experts decided over a 3-year period of wasting time and taxpayers' money that thirst is a medical condition called dehydration and therefore can only be diagnosed and treated by the medical profession, i.e. a doctor, not common water purveyors or city taps. This is fact, believe it or not. This sort of stupidity comes directly from orthodox medical intelligentsia. Western Orthodox medicine's great forte, however, is in drastic crisis intervention, where surgery and powerful drugs can give instant relief and often offset life-threatening situations such as stroke, heart attack, jackhammer nail intrusions, or genetic handicap. Orthodox medicine's reputation is built upon the advances in modern technology, where often heroic medicine measures are employed to staple tummies in half, to suck out fat, to remove fast-growing tumours and blood clots. But the tragedy of these instant high-tech procedures is that people tend to lose the ability to prevent these things in the first place and don't know how to deal personally with early signs of high blood pressure, diabetes, asthma and all other modern degenerate ailments that plague people today. It's very much so much easier to let Dr. Someone Else and his brown bottle of pills do all the work. Many enlightened people, however, are looking for less invasive, chemical-free ways of getting well, and traditional herbal medicine can offer that to them. And we can do this without causing any further suffering. Herbal medicine has been very healing to me and a lot of fun over the last 3 decades of working with her, so I wanted to share my enthusiasm along with protege Ellen and sister Jan and set up a shop. So upset the Waipu Herbal Apothecary, with very keen sister insisting that she was the right person to run the herbal boutique, which she certainly was. This premises has become the lungs of the business surrounding the Malcolm Harker herbal range of over 80 handmade products. One of the greatest pleasures for the traditional herbalist is the freedom, getting out into the countryside on sunny mornings with trusty herb gatherers, to hidden dells and groves where ancient herbs, mostly introduced, flourish, Many a person stops and stares in wonder, seeing our chattering band of elves snipping away at wild honeysuckle tips, gingerly collecting spiny gorse tips and blossoms, and hawthorn leaves and berries, reaching high for the best. You can take the whole bloomin' lot. They're just weeds, most farmers say, not realising how much like gold to the herbalist of the land these lowly weeds are. Gorse for the urinary system, wild broom for the liver, blackberry for women's concerns, hawthorn leaf, flower and berry for the heart and the arteries, wild honeysuckle vines for the lungs. The traditional herbalist is quite different from the modern day herbalist in that our remedies are made directly from freshly gathered and dried raw herbs rather than bought in ready-made tinctures. We use time-honoured signs of herbal potency out in the field to judge herb suitability, quality and taste. From long experience with wild herbs, we know nature can be relied upon to fill wild medicinal herbs with the right quota of healing principles when grown in seeds, soils of wild and fallowed land and harvested at the right time. If traditional methods of herbalism are not encouraged and taught, the old ways will succumb to the instant clinical style of modern herbalism, formulating herbal extracts made by someone else in another country, which would be a massive step backward in the world of time-honoured healing art. So, to all budding herbalists, enter the field of traditional medical herbal science with pride and equip yourselves with a vast knowledge of healing herbs by studying the writings and research papers of the great sages and physicians from both ancient and modern time, because now is the time when the world is seeking our help, expecting us to come forward to do our best and not let them down. We want to play second fiddle to no one and enter the halls of true medicine with knowledge advanced to the degree where nations will look up to the traditional herbalist as truly trustworthy physicians. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen. Culpeper and many others who laid the foundations of traditional healing that are very much applicable and appropriate today. I had good reason to want to know how to heal my body. Early years on the family farm provided a good life for a growing boy. Plenty of homegrown veggies, raw cow's milk, pure rainwater, fresh country air. But at the age of 13, whilst working in a neighbouring piggery, I got bitten by a piglet we were castrating with a razor blade, and that was instant justice, I reckon. And came down with leptospirosis, which led to weeks in intensive care as my body sweated and fatigued. I bounced back okay, only to squash my finger a few days later between a rock and a harder place, which left the end digit flat and needing stitches. Then I was back to the doctors having the digit sliced off because it had died and decomposed. On top of this, there followed a severe bout of yellow jaundice for another 3 weeks, and the inoculations and drugs that went with that, all of which was far too much for me at that young age. For many years after that, I was constantly fatigued, with inflamed liver, swollen kidneys, continual colds and flu, always off work. I was rake thin, pallid, suffered the mother of all dreadful acidity and heartburn after every meal, regurgitating up volumes of acidic mucus from my stomach, plus constipation and 2 very active anal fissures that hassled me as well. Until the age of 38, when I realised that if I wanted to live a happier life, I'd better start doing something about it now. I didn't use herbs at all to heal myself in the early days. This was accomplished mainly through raw vegetables and fruits, and maybe the right attitude, because I really wanted to get well. I wanted the acre farm bordering the Waipapa River up in Kerikeri, a lush green sanctuary with waterfalls, ferny dells, deep and dark eel-infested swimming holes, and goats, cows, horses, chooks, and Mickey the border collie. At the age of 24, I left for an overseas experience and spent a wonderful 10 years adventure in outback Australia through the 1970s as the beginning of my OE. But I seem to have got stuck in Aussie because it was such an amazing place with so much to see and do. It was a heaven for a young adventurous lad of 24. I don't know whether it was the Aussie meat pies or the flies, It eventually dragged me back away from my dear friends, back home to mum and dad and cool green grass. It was probably a bit of both, plus the fact that I had become a very sick man after crawling out of the raging 70s, having had a great time burning the candle at both ends, raging, partying up big time, and then fed up with that, living a rustic life up in the Blue Mountains and the back blocks with hillbillies who took me and my mate into their homes, and they taught us things about life and the nature around them. Back home in New Zealand around the early 80s, I worked as chief salad maker and taster for Simple Cottage restaurant in Auckland, surrounded in good food, and became healthier whilst turning my attention to the study and practice of what I saw was a modern tragedy: the dying customs and values of traditional herbal medicine and the related dietary and living ethos that goes with it. I wanted to study traditional herbal medicine because the old ways and those bearded, wise old physicians appealed to me. So I surfed all the Auckland bookshops, buying up all the old herbal books, looking for herbal knowledge written by wise physicians and philosophers such as Gerard, Hippocrates, Dioscorides, Sydenham, experience. And for that, I'm truly grateful to the Creator for choosing me to do His will. Traditional herbal medicine has taught me that life is indeed a fickle thing that needs looking after, and preferably without the help from the chemical drug and snip-out brigade. Along the way, I learnt that traditional herbal philosophies light up the importance of diet for nutrition of the body, that without the one there can't be the other, because in health matters, plant foods and good health are inseparable, because most vegetables we eat today started off their long association with humans as medicinal herbs. There's garlic, lettuce, parsley, carrots are ordinary examples. My story is about a rather late start in life, back to that wonderful thing called wellness, beginning around about the age of 40-ish, and what I've learnt and embraced along the way that I found good for me and for those who seek me for assistance with their health concerns. To relate this story properly, I've got to go back into prehistory, to the dawn of man's first days on earth, when hunger led them to attractive flowering and delicious smelling fruits on trees, and to the grasslands and herbaceous fields in search of sweet drupes, berries and nuts to eat. He would have captured a few slow rodents, sleepy lizards, a fish or two, and perhaps a couple of nectar-inebriated birds along the way, as well as their eggs, all of which would have provided superb balanced nutrition, good health and natural strength. The history of the use of plants as remedies probably goes back to that time when primitive man, living so close to nature, would have observed the habits of the animals around him. It feels great to be here to do this speech today because I've always wanted to speak to the people, but time has never been right. I haven't felt up to it or just too shy. But now, at the age of 67, I feel like it's time now that I need to lose those silly childish feelings and stand here and talk to you about what I've learned over the last 30 years. So thank you for your patience and whilst we were setting up. But firstly, I want to say that this speech wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for Alan, my dear partner, who only an hour ago, or an hour and a half ago now, completed this script and the photo slots for me that I'd moved around over the last 2 days and buggered the whole thing up. So, not only that, this is Alan's first time, it's our first time doing a PowerPoint presentation, so hope you enjoy it. Kia ora, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Malcolm Harker, traditional medical herbalist and passionate manufacturer of over 80 handmade original herbal remedies and personal healthcare products sold through the New Zealand health market since 1981. Firstly, I want to say how honoured and humbled I am that you've come along to hear me speak. This is the first time in over 25 years that I've felt that I'm ready to tell my story And it's a fascinating story that many people would give their right arm to and learnt about their curative properties of herbs that they use for food and when they are injured. There are snakes in India, after shedding their skin, they go blind for several hours as the morphine process proceeds, and in that helpless state, they've been seen to slither over to mossy banks and rub their sightless oars into the moist moss, tearing at it to bring out the juice. And with that simple herb, they are said to quickly restore their sight. In Canada, there are hawks known to peck at the eyes of young birds in the nest. The mother birds have been seen to rub the chicks' damaged eyes with celandine herb, and it's said that where the eyes aren't totally destroyed, the lacerations caused by the pecking have been healed and sight restored. Another good example of animal know-how in choosing their remedies occurs when the mongoose, the cobra snake's only mortal enemy, when bitten by the snake in battle, goes straight over to a plantain herb, crushes it, rolls in the juice, and pushes his bitten backside into the crushed leaves. Then he returns to give the snake one hell of a hiding. According to many witnesses, this display of animal self-healing, no mongoose has ever died of a snake bite. And you can use that herb for bee stings, whitetail spider bites, wasp stings, toothache, anything like that. It'll take the pain away in 10 to 20 minutes and draw out the poison as well. Hundreds of examples of animals' instinctive selection of remedies make it seem logical that humans would have learned over time which herbs and other natural things would heal them from our own problems. Such instances are the roots of traditional herbal healing. For myself, my roots are in a dairy farm upbringing on a beautiful 60